Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's JINSA webinar on Washington's and Jerusalem's next moves in the war with Iran. I'm Jonathan Ruhe, JINSA's Fellow for American Strategy. We'll discuss a range of timely issues today, including what's going on around the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's nuclear sites, and Hezbollah's decision to enter the war against Israel. I'm delighted to be joined by our two distinguished panelists today. Vice Admiral Mark Fox is former commander of U.S. Naval Forces Central Command and U.S. Fifth Fleet, among many other past positions. Currently, he is a member of JINSA's policy projects on the Abraham Accords and the Eastern Mediterranean, as well as a GNA program participant. IDF Major General Yaakov Amidror is the former National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. He is also a JINSA Distinguished Fellow. I'd also like to thank General Amidror for joining the webinar despite being called away due to the sirens that are going on. So I think that will also be relevant to some of the things we're discussing today. I just want to note for today's discussion and in my questions for the panelists, these are all taking place in an unclassified setting, though we are on the record. For our audience, please type any questions you may have into the Q&A box on your screen. We'll be sure to do the best to address them in the time we have. So, Admiral Fox, I'd like to start with you, since I think the naval standoff around the Gulf, for lack of a better term, is the most pressing issue, certainly here in the United States. Before we start discussing what some of the options might be on the U.S. side, could you please just start by giving our audience a sense of what are Iran's? Iran has made the decision to attack shipping in the Gulf and Strait of Hormuz, which is obviously one of the world's most critical energy export choke points. Could you, and everyone's heard about the mines, the naval mines that are the hot topic now. Could you sort of set the scene for our audience? What are Iran's naval capabilities as we understand them in terms of what remains and its ability to threaten these vital shipping lanes in the Gulf?
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I'm glad to be with you, and Yaakov, thank you for joining us. The Strait of Hormuz is only at its narrowest point, probably less than 20 nautical miles wide. One interesting thing is the Strait of Hormuz itself is really deep, so it's not very easily mined, at least not with the classic moored mines or that sort of thing. But the Iranians have proved themselves to be, during the 1980s conflicts, they actually mined over in Kuwait, or they go into the other the Arabian Peninsula waters to mine, away from their own shore. So it's not like they only mine in their own territorial waters. The one thing that I don't know, Admiral Cooper was a former Fifth Fleet, and he was also a former deputy at Central Command. So he's eminently qualified for those of us who have had those responsibilities. I haven't been the CENTCOM commander, but I was the deputy. The one thing that is, I hope, has been done, and that is a really disciplined and thorough approach to destroying known sites of mine magazines and the places where they would be assembled. And, so we're well in over a week now into this conflict. And certainly in my mind, you hear all of the stories of how many Iranian warships and craft have been sunk. I would really expect that this campaign has been focused on really blunting their ability to put mines in the water. Everybody's been talking about this, but the way that the Iranians have been squeezing the economies of all of their neighbors have been by hitting tankers. I think well over a dozen tankers have been hit. And it's one of those cases where there are incredible numbers of places for them to launch these drones and coastal defense cruise missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles. And so that's part of this air campaign, I think, is finding a way to thoroughly create a disinfectant, if you will, of a corridor where they're incapable of launching and hitting merchant ships. Another thing that I think would be worth remembering, and that is, imagine if Iran had a nuclear weapon, what they would be doing. There's a good reason why this conflict is going on, and it's to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And it's just a good sobering reminder. The Iranians don't quit. They're not, they issued keys to children in the Iran-Iraq war to clear minefields. They suffered probably pushing 500,000 casualties. And so they are tenacious. I think I can see it in a similar way of at the end of World War II, it was the emperor's edict that they surrender that created the conditions for a peaceful end of that war, even though they had had a couple of nuclear attacks. The Ayatollah is in that same kind of position of only the Ayatollah is able to make those kinds of decisions. And Ayatollah Khomeini back in 1988, if you remember back in, I think it was July 3rd of 1988, USS Vincennes, in a horrible miscalculation of war, shot down an Iranian airliner with 274 people on it. And it was that coupled with the Iraqi attack with chemical weapons that summer of 1988 that the Ayatollah Khomeini came up and said, this is a chalice of poison I'll have to drink. He thought that we had finally taken the gloves off with this horrible miscalculation. But it's only the Ayatollah that I can, as best I can understand, he's the one who's got to make those kinds of decisions.
Thank you, Admiral Fox. And that raises a good question I want to jump to before we get into the next question about Hormuz and what the U.S. can and its partners can be doing there. But before we jump to that, General Amidror, I'd like to ask you, given that Admiral Fox raised this issue about the Iranian regime's posture and attitude toward the war, we've heard defiant statements from Ali Larijani, who may in some sense be one of the de facto major players in the Iranian regime, even if the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is officially the new head. But General Amidror, what is your understanding of, the appointment of a new supreme leader, the previous supreme leader's son? Does that signify anything to you about the regime's willingness or ability to continue prosecuting this war externally?
It's a continuation of the same regime. I don't see any change. The inauguration was done not with the guy who was nominated, but his picture was inaugurated. It tells you something about the situation in Iran today. He didn't appear in public. He sent someone in the television to read his declaration. But it is probably the same regime without the authority of the father. And what it means for the future, I don't know. Let's see.
Thank you, General Amidror. So I want to maintain this opening thread that I asked Admiral Fox about. So, Admiral, given that you did such a thorough job laying out sort of the problem so far, we've heard President Trump publicly entertain the idea, at least, of potentially escorting naval vessels through Hormuz, U.S. Navy escorts. There's obviously a precedent for that, which you hinted at in the 1980s. Could you give us a sense of what that operation might look like, the challenges it might face, especially in the context of all the ships that we understand now are bottled up on the Gulf side of the strait?
Well, there are a couple of things. Back in 1988, we had a close to 600 ship Navy. Today, we have a less than 300 ship Navy. And so our Navy has more mission than it has resources to meet the mission. And so the ships that are engaged in this are either in places where they're doing ballistic missile defense, or they're protecting the aircraft carrier and the strike group, or they're launching Tomahawks. They're in certain positions for Tomahawk launches. Our surface warfare community is extremely busy right now. And if there is tasking from the president to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz, then that's certainly what the Navy will do, but that's not right now where the Navy's focus is, because we're focused right now on ballistic missile defense, defending the carrier, and Tomahawk baskets to ensure that we're capable of servicing the targets that they're tasked for. That said, I think that there are ships that are going through the Strait of Hormuz. They turn off their AIS. I think there are Iranian gray, what would you call it, gray tankers trying to smuggle oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. But what they do is they turn off this automatic identification system, the AIS, and will go in and go out. So it's really a difficult thing to truly know how many ships are coming and going and how many of them are. I mean, it's certainly from where we sit. I do think that the Iranians have got capabilities still that are, these little drones that they're launching and the cruise missiles and so forth. They still represent a significant threat. And until we've beat that down and created a condition where merchant mariners are capable of operating in international water safely, then I think that this is going to be some amount of time for us to have to deal with that.
Thank you. And just one quick follow-up question that's come up from our audience. So we've talked about the threats that Iran can pose to the rest of the Gulf here. What is your understanding of, to the extent the U.S. has targeted Iran's own ability to export energy, either through the Gulf or from its shores more generally? Because I've also seen reports in recent days that Iran is still getting its own energy exports out.
Yeah, I think now I'm on the outside looking in, so I can't speak with authority about this, but I do think that this has been a focused campaign on military capability, and we haven't taken down the electrical grid, we haven't taken down their oil production facilities, we haven't taken down all the, so in a way there's there's certainly more pressure that's available to ratchet up, I think, in this kind of situation, but we've been focused on military capability rather than trying to just take out their infrastructure. And it's clear to me, at least until now, that's been a conscious decision.
Thank you, Admiral. General Amidror, I'd like to turn to you now. Admiral Fox, mentioned how different this situation would be if the Iranian regime had a nuclear weapon. And obviously, that's been an explicit goal of both the United States and Israel in this operation is to degrade or eliminate Iran's nuclear weapons capability. Could you give us a sense? Obviously, there's the uncertainty that attends military operations and fog of war, but could you give us your sense of what the main remaining risks are from Iran's nuclear capability, or things that maybe we know we need to know, but that we don't know, in terms of where Iran stockpiles are, its undeclared facilities, things like that?
By definition, the thing that we don't know, we don't know. So I don't know to speak about something that I don't know. I mean, we have a list of all the facilities which are important for the nuclear project, and we are, with our partners, the Americans, we destroy probably almost all of them. If they have something that we don't know about, it will not be destroyed. But the minute that we will know about it, we will move and we'll do what is needed. I believe that based on our very deep knowledge of the system and what was built by the Iranians in the past, that most of the project was destroyed up to now. The question that I don't have an answer to, and this is issue of BDA, is to assess how long it will take the Iranians to rebuild it if they decide to do it. But I think that in the present situation of the Iranians, if will be a need, both we and the Americans know how to get back and what to do if will be needed to destroy any attempt of, and to prevent any attempt of the Iranians to rebuild their capabilities relating to these two projects, which from our point of view, the Israeli point of view, are very important. the 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 um, uh, the uh, um, the project of the long-range missiles. I'm hesitating how to call it because I think that what we are doing now, we are destroying the industrial base of the Iranians. It's not just very focused on the missiles and the nuclear project. It is wider than that. I mean, we try to destroy everything which is related to the missiles and to the nuclear, but it is broader than that. We are destroying facilities which are part of the industrial base of the Iranians because we want to be in a position after the war that even if the regime stay as it is today, the ability to take Israel will be minimal, will be really close to zero. But not less important, the ability to renew it will be very problematic for the Iranians. And for that, we are broadening the facilities that we are destroying. And we speak now not just about those two projects, but about the industrial base of the Iranians.
So thank you, General Amidror. Just a quick follow on. I guess maybe I'll be a little more precise in my questioning. We do know in terms of Iran's nuclear program, and we've heard this concern voiced by the head of the IAEA recently, is there may be some uncertainty about where Iran's stockpile of high enriched uranium is. And there's also, we know Iran has a new facility at Isfahan and also what's called Pickaxe Mountain, a deeply buried facility under hard rock near Natanz. And, we've heard in the press there may be considerations to go in and that requires a ground operation because it's beyond reach of U.S. and Israeli air-to-ground munitions. Is that something you think is part of this assessment in terms of how far back you can set Iran's nuclear program?
One of the reasons for taking all the measures and to begin the new operations 2 weeks ago was the notion that if we are not doing it, the Iranians probably will succeed to bring more facilities under the ground in places, as you said, that some of them cannot be reached by our Air Force and the American Air Force, and we wanted to destroy these facilities before they will be moved under and will be undergrounded by the Iranians. The main issue that we don't know how to solve is the 440 enriched uranium kilogram of enriched uranium that the Iranians have. According to IAEA, part of it is in Isfahan, and the other half is not known where it is. People are speaking about Natanz. Maybe, I don't know. This is something that we, at the present situation, don't know how to remove from Iran. That probably will wait to the negotiations of the ceasefire after or towards the end of the war, if the Iranians will be ready to negotiate. I'm not sure that they will be ready to negotiate. But this is something that is a weak point in the whole success, is the fact that this more than 400 enriched uranium is in the hands of the Iranians. It's 60% enriched uranium. They need 2 facilities to make it good enough for a warhead. First, they need to converge it to metal. No, first of all, they have to enrich it to 90%. And second is to converge it to metal. It doesn't matter, it's chemical process. As far as we know, they don't have enriching places which hadn't been destroyed by us or the Americans. And the Isfahan Converge center was probably totally destroyed by both us and the Americans. But the truth is that even if they have the ability to enrich the uranium, the weaponization project is something that was they do not have the same capabilities that they had before the war. The explosive laboratory in Farchin, which was a very important part of the weaponization efforts of the Iranians. Without it, you cannot make this stage. You cannot weaponize the enriched uranium, even if you enrich it to 90%, and even if you converge it into metal. You need the explosive system, which without it you don't have a warhead that you can use. That was destroyed in the last few days, probably according to the satellites picture totally. So I think that just about the nuclear project, I think that the situation is the achievements are very high. As I said, there is one weak point in the whole picture, and this is the 440 kilogram enriched uranium that if it is the end of the Iranians, it's much easier for them to go to the next stages. They don't have the capabilities now, and as I said, we succeeded to destroy part of or most of the facilities which are needed for these steps ahead. But this is something that we should solve at the end of the war.
Thank you, General Amidror. I have a question for Admiral Fox from Neri Zilber of the Financial Times. Why have the Iran's small fast boats that could potentially be used for mining operations not been taken out yet?
Well, Iran's got an enormously long coastline. Think of the United States, let's say from New York to Charleston. And so it's an enormous task now to ensure that no small boats, no leakers come out. I have no doubt whatsoever that it's somewhere in the target priority list, and especially as they represent a threat, they will be. I think they will be eliminated, but I don't have a specific answer. It's a hard problem. Remember back when we were over on the Red Sea side, and the difficulties of being able to handle the Houthis, who are less sophisticated in many ways than the Iranians. It's a hard problem in terms of just geography and numbers.
Thank you, Admiral Fox. And a follow-on question from Neri Zilber for both of you. I'll just continue with you first, Admiral Fox. Sort of zooming out a little bit from that last question, are you surprised by Iran's ability to continue projecting force across the region so successfully now almost 2 weeks into the war?
Well, I think I would probably turn that on its head. I had every expectation that the Iranians would be as destructive and recalcitrant, and they're a pariah nation, and they are a state sponsor of terror, and they weren't bothered by killing tens of thousands, if not 32,000 of their own people in January. So why are we surprised that they're doing what they're doing now? So, you do a military campaign and you set priorities and you go after the things that are really important early, and then you start to, we're flying B-52s now over land. That's incredible. We have air supremacy over Iran. So I'm not that surprised, especially the Iranians haven't changed their stripes. They are not somebody who's got a rational mind to go, well, you know what, maybe we ought to change our mind about this. No, I think that they're absolutely committed to this track, and it's not the Iranian people necessarily, it's the regime. And so, the Iranian people have not been well served by their leadership and by this regime. And I think that it's going to be a lot more difficult to solve some military problems than you think. And this is probably one of them.
Thank you, Admiral. General Amidror, the same question for you. Your assessment of Iran's ability to continue projecting power 2 weeks into the war.
I'll give you a number that someone sent me 5 minutes ago. After 12 days of the previous operation in June, the number of claims of Israelis who has damage in their property reached the amount of 5.5 billion shekel. After 13 days, the number of the damage which was claimed by Israeli citizens after 13 days is 400 million shekel. I mean, less than 10%. It says something about the ability of the Iranians to launch missiles that we cannot intercept. And this gives you the ratio between the ability of Iran in June and the capabilities of Iran today more than anything else. It's the most objective judgment of the situation. What is the damage in Israel after 12 days of the previous operation and after 13 days of this operation? Less than 10%. They didn't succeed to make even one real salvo. What they are launching into Israel are here and there, hours between the missiles and from our point of view, for the defensive systems, it's much easier to deal with the threats. This is why the successes of the system, the systems, it's the American system and the Israeli system totally integrated, the TAD and the Arrow, is so high. And this is why the damage in Israel is so little. So yes, the Iranians still have capabilities to launch into Israel and to try to destroy facilities in the Gulf. Remember, in some cases, it is less than 100 kilometers. It's very close. It's systems that can be used in America in the level of a division. And they are using it from their side into some of the Gulf countries. Some of the targets are more than 100 kilometers, of course, but many of them are around 100 kilometers. So I think that the Iranians, we succeed. When I'm saying we, I mean America and Israel. We succeed to reduce the capabilities of the Iranians every day. Every day. It will take time because the mistake that we did, that we let them to build so many launchers and missiles and so on. So that was the mistake. Today we are, I'm not saying slowly, but surely what we are doing is we are making them less and less capable to attack Israel, to attack their neighbors, to defend themselves. I don't know if you heard about the fact that we made a whole operation against besiege checkpoints in Tehran. More than 100, by the way. How many besiege members had been killed, I don't know. But the fact that we could, because of the overall superiority that we have over Iran. We are flying over Iran today, we, the Americans and Israelis, we are flying over Iran like we are flying, the IDF, flying over Gaza. I mean, no position around the whole Iran. The Americans, the day that the Americans bring in the B-52 and the B-1B, I think you called it, and you understand that damage in Iran will be much more intensive. Yes, it takes time, and people think that military operations are like what they see in the movie. It's not. Operations need time, need persistence and resilience of the decision makers to continue. We are making mistakes, but we should continue. Yesterday, we was here in my house. The BBC came to hear my view about the situation, and the lady which made it asked me, "Okay, what do you need to finish the job?" I asked with one word: time. After what we achieved over the skies of Iran, what we need, we, America and Israel, is only time. And when it will be ended, if we have enough time, the Iranians will go back I don't know how many years, they will lose the ability, even if they want. I'm not sure that they will, but if they want to rebuild what they had before the war, it will be totally different Iran. You know, people don't understand. At the end of the war, it will be totally different Iran without the ability to produce and to launch and to use force, but we need time. If the Americans will be patient enough and will give us, the uniform guys in both sides, in America and in Israel, which, by the way, today, I spoke with the father of F-16 pilot, and he told me that they feel after more than 10 days that the integration with the American pilots is like they are part of the same Air Force. You know, in Israel, all the airplanes are in the Air Force. We don't have ground force with airplanes. So it is becoming better and better. And we need time. But the direction is clear. The momentum is clear. The Iranians don't have any secret card that they can use to change the situation. They don't have any secret that they tomorrow they will reveal, and it will be problematic for the Israeli. Any target that the intelligence gives to the Air Force, either American Air Force or Israeli Forces, will be destroyed within few hours. It's unbelievable situation. Think, we are 1,500 kilometers away from the target. Some pilots flying 4 hours in and 4 hours back because they have to make a round. And in the middle, they meet the refueling system of the United States of America. You know, it's kind of a gas station in the middle of the skies. And by the way, all the airplanes, doesn't matter if it's Israeli side or American side, all the airplanes are American made. Mm-hmm. And the language that we are, the language which is the common language is English. You can hear, I heard some conversations that someone gave me to hear. You can hear immediately the difference between the accents. I mean, the Israeli accent is one, and the American accent is another one. But altogether, it's the same language. They speak the same language. They have the same intelligence. They share the same way of thinking how to do it. With the American, with their system, and our with ours, it's different systems. We didn't change your system, and you didn't change our system. But the combination is unbelievable, and the result, at least for today, is that we are totally superiority over Iran, and they don't have any way to stop us or to prevent us from destroying something that we think it should be destroyed.
Thank you, General Amidror, and that tees up perfectly my question for Admiral Fox. It's sort of two halves of a question. Admiral Fox, if you could give us, sort of your American perspective on, how you assess the joint U.S. Israeli operation. It's not the first time that American and Israeli pilots at least have cooperated, but I think would love to get a deeper sense of how you see that currently. And also, I think this is the first time I've had a question to ask a naval aviator since the conflict started. Sort of, we've heard plenty about the U.S. Air Force, but would love to get your sort of perspective on what naval aviation has been accomplishing so far in the conflict.
Well, first of all, in one word, the air campaign has been unbelievably remarkable. There's never, ever been an air campaign as effective as what we've seen over the last, 12 or 13 days. I was the strike leader and mission commander for the first strike of Iraqi freedom in March of 2003. And what this team has put together is orders of magnitude greater. We hit hundreds of aim points with hundreds of airplanes. This time they've hit thousands of aim points. It's just been a unbelievably, just really remarkable. I can't overstate it enough to say it's just one hell of an air campaign. And the the effectiveness of the tactics and the way that we've employed our forces has been remarkable. There's just no other way to put it. So I'm glad we're on the same side, I'll put it that way, and I would not want to face the problem that we're giving Iran right now. As far as naval aviation is concerned, there are, we've got stealth airplanes in the F-35 off of the Lincoln. The F-35 is, as you recall from the 12-day war last year, was a game changer for Israel, and it's one of those capabilities that gives you real-time information that's usable in the cockpit. It's not something that's got to go back. It's so the F-35 and the ability to communicate amongst airplanes and share information is at an entirely new level. It's and the retargeting, both the level of intel, the quality and the accuracy of the intelligence that we have is unprecedented. I've never. It's a whole new level, and I can't say enough about. I flew in Desert Storm in 1991, and we had how many sorties per target? I only dropped dumb bombs except for some anti-radiation missiles in that conflict. And then we went into Iraqi freedom, and we had precision weapons, and now it's how many targets per sortie. And this is another 20 years-ish on that's even at a higher level than before. So my hat's off to a bunch of very, very disciplined and capable young warriors, young male and female on both the Israeli and the U.S. side. The Navy side of this, we bring the Growler in particular. It's an electronic attack airplane, effective for blinding radars, for collecting electromagnetic signals and so forth. But we're a joint team. We all come together, and as was just said before, it's like now we're operating together at a Red Flag or in Fallon. I mean, in the high-end training that we do, this is high-end operation at its finest.
Thank you, Admiral. And I would just note for our audience, Admiral Fox was a member of a JINSA task force that went over to Israel after the 12-day war last June, and did an assessment of Israel's Operation Rising Lion, and also cooperation with U.S. operations. And I would note for everyone that November 2025 report is available on our website. General Amidror, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to discuss what's going on the Lebanese front. Could you give our audience a sense of, well, let's start with why is Hezbollah joining the war? And at least if I can editorialize, why does it seem like they started the war with another small attack like they did after October 7th, enough to provoke a serious Israeli response?
Yeah, the Hezbollah was under pressure from Iran. The Iranians, which built Hezbollah for almost a jubilee. I mean, it's for. I was the intelligence officer of the Northern Command from 86 on. So it's 40 years, more than 40 years that Hezbollah was begin to be built by the Iranians in Lebanon. And when I say built by Iran, I mean they invested huge money. I don't know how many billions of dollars. They gave them the best weapon system that could be provided by Iran and by Syria. They trained them and make all the efforts that they would be ready for the war in Israel. Special forces launching missiles, anti-tank missiles, anti-air missiles, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, everything collapsed. And towards the end of 24, with American intervention, the organization agreed to a ceasefire in which he knew Israel will have the ability to react to any attempt by Hezbollah to rebuild itself. The strategic difference between the past and today is the fact that there is no any land bridge between Iran and Hezbollah. Syria is out of the bridge, and without Syria, there is no bridge. And because of that, the ability of Hezbollah to renew its capability after the end of 24 was very limited, very, very, very limited. And we, according to the side letter which we signed with the United States of America as part of the cease agreement, or the ceasefire agreement, we intercepted any attempt of Hezbollah to rebuild its capabilities or to come back to South Lebanon. But we couldn't act because of the ceasefire with high amount of forces as we had as it should be. Hezbollah gave us an excuse, but it happened during the war against Iran, and we had to make kind of decision how much to take from the efforts in Iran into allocate to the effort in Lebanon, mainly Air Force, because the ground forces anyhow are not involved in Iran. That was not the problem. I think that after the 12 first days, the Iranians' pressure on Hezbollah was unbearable. And Hezbollah decided that he should demonstrate his capabilities. We destroyed probably between 75 to 80% of its launching capabilities in 24. But the 25% which remain, it's more than 20,000 missiles, because what they had is more than 100. Yesterday, they succeeded to launch 200. We intercepted, as far as I know, more than 190 off of these 200. They didn't make any damage inside Israel from these 200 missiles. We succeeded to destroy 2/3 of the launchers that they use or prepare to use. Some of them immediately after it had been used, that cannot use it again, and some of them before they use it. The plan was to launch 3 times, around 500 to 600, and they succeeded to launch 200. And today, they don't have any substitute to the launchers that they lost, because, as I said, they lost the connection with Iran and Syria, which was the background from which they got all these capabilities. We are preparing the ground forces to advance our forces in South Lebanon more to the north and more forces. And according to the demand from the civilian population to leave the area, I understand that we are pushing behind the Litani. I don't know where the ground forces will arrive, but slowly we are moving ahead, calling the civilians to leave the area. We don't want them in the battlefield. We don't want them to be hurt. Hezbollah, unlike Hamas, cannot stand and stop them. Hezbollah is too weak to stop the civilian population. They are leaving. They are leaving towards the north. Parallel to the push in the south, we are very aggressive in the South Beirut, what we call the Dahia, the area which is the headquarters and the storing area of Hezbollah. And from time to time, we are bombing in the north part, in the Bekaa, today there was an interesting information that the Syrian president called the Lebanese president, and the two presidents spoke about cooperation between Syria and Lebanon to deal with Hezbollah. If that is going to happen, it's one. I'm not sure that it is not a fake news. I don't know. Today every second fact is a fake news. But if that happens, it's for Hezbollah, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. Let's see what will happen. We are very active, but very slow. We don't want to go too fast when we know that the support which is needed for the ground forces is coming from the same forces that which are very active in Iran. So how to play between the two fronts is something that the headquarters in Tel Aviv should take into consideration. And this is why we are not running now into a big operation. It might happen within few days when we feel better in Iran in the list which we have, which we prioritize. As the Admiral said at the beginning, you go to the most important targets, and slowly you go down the ladder. And when we will be enough down in the ladder, more forces will be moved to Lebanon. For the Air Force, it's much easier. Of course, it's very close. Instead of flying 1,500 kilometers, they have to fly only 100 kilometers, which is very close. The meaning of it that you can bring more targets in one sort. So Lebanon is boiling. We are preparing ourselves, but it's clear that this time we have to go the whole way. And the whole means that many areas in Lebanon will be distracted, will bring ground forces. I don't know where to, but it is not only the first 10 kilometers from the border, it will be deeper than that. We want to deny them the ability to launch anti-tank missiles into our communities, what they are doing, still are doing. For that, we have to push Hezbollah to the north. It is a long war, not an easy one, because it's a very problematic terrain for the ground forces, but we are very determined this time to make it to the end. Israel don't have an experience of wars of elimination. We always said, okay, we will do something, the situation will be better, and maybe 10 years from now we will come again. No, this time we have what we have in mind is to eliminate Hezbollah as a military organization. By the way, I spoke with someone who is living in Beirut. He was in Beirut last week, I think, last time. His family is there, so I cannot say any word about him. And he told me that the situation of Hezbollah is very problematic because they don't have the money to pay their people, and the people who lost their houses in the south. The situation within Lebanon, the legitimacy of Hezbollah in Lebanon is in a very low point. And if they will be pushed more by us, and it will be clear in Lebanon that Lebanon is paying the price for Iran, that might lead to another situation in Lebanon.
Thank you, General Amidror. Given that we only have a few minutes left, I'd like to ask more questions about Lebanon, but I want to cover a couple of other issues before we run out of time. Admiral Fox, we heard General Amidror talk about this, as we said, working their way down the ladder of targets in terms of priority. We've also seen reports that potentially a third U.S. Navy carrier strike group may be headed toward the Middle East. I believe it's the George H.W. Bush. Does this signal anything particular to you? This occurs in the context of we've constantly heard in the press, the American press, about concerns that the United States is running low on munitions of all types. Does that concern or that headline, do you think that's related to moving a third carrier strike group into the region, or how do you read that? I guess is a better way to frame the question.
No, that you can replenish an aircraft carrier at sea with ordnance and with food and with fuel. The great strength that naval aviation brings to this fight is that you don't have to have permission of host nations to operate, and so that always is a wedge that you can use to open the door, because once you've now said, well, we're going to be able to operate whether you want us to or not, then that typically will open the door to other host nations and say, well, if you're going to operate, we'll just go ahead and let your ground force or your land based aircraft. So naval aviation creates a unique entry point in terms of the basing and access piece of it, because you don't have to ask for permission from anybody to operate in international waters. We had 6 aircraft carriers in Desert Storm in 1991. The carrier count, I think, in Iraqi Freedom 2003 was somewhere around 5. We had some in the Mediterranean. We had them in the Gulf. So the capability of the air wing from 1991 to 2003 to 2026, 3 aircraft carriers are more than capable of doing what 6 aircraft carriers did before in terms of servicing aim points, delivering ordnance. You've got the Gerald R. Ford, which was designed to generate sorties, and they've completely redesigned the ship with new elevators and new ordnance handling. It's so much better than the Nimitz class, and the Nimitz class is the best that there was. So it's we do have high-end ordnance that we keep an eye on in terms of THAAD and the Aegis weapon systems on our ballistic missile ships, but that's a manageable problem. I mean, it's something that we figured out that you don't use the high-end hammer to swat a fly, and so there are a number of different ways that we've now figured out how to handle the low, slow flyers, and it's just one of those cases where a new capability is introduced, we adapt, then they adapt, and we're in that cycle right now. But from a carrier perspective, the way that you keep it relevant is with new airplanes and/or new weapons, and the aircraft carrier remains viable because it's always got the latest and greatest weapons and aircraft, and it moves. So it gives the president all kinds of options, I guess would be the way I would put it.
Wonderful. Well, I think on that note, I'm going to try to respect the fact that it's almost 11 p.m. in Israel, give General Amidror at least a few minutes back. But I want to thank both Admiral Fox and General Amidror, as always, for joining us and sharing their thoughts and time today. And to our audience, stay tuned for further JINSA webinars as the conflict goes on. And also keep an eye out for JINSA materials related to a lot of the topics we discussed here today. So again, thank you all. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you.
Admiral, good night.